We're continuing to learn more about the man suspected of carrying out Tuesday's terror attack here in New York City. Prosecutors claim Sayfullo Saipov planned the attack for about a year, and he did it in the name of ISIS.
The suspect is now facing federal charges of providing material support to terrorists after telling our Major Garrett yesterday that he would consider sending the suspect to Guantanamo Bay. The president took to Twitter this morning, writing, quote, "Would love to send the NYC terrorists to Guantanamo, but statistically that process takes much longer than going through the federal system." He went on to say there is something appropriate about keeping him in the home of the horrible crime he committed. Should move fast. Death penalty, in all caps. Let's bring in Ali Watkins. She's a national security correspondent for Politico. She joins us now from Washington. So, Ali, the president seems to be walking back his comment from yesterday about Gitmo, but now he's not really backing down on his call for the death penalty. Unpack everything we're hearing from the president on this issue. At the very least, although the suspect could be charged in a death penalty case, the president tweeting about it makes it very hard that he'll receive a fair trial.
Yeah, so we've got kind of two separate issues here. We have the Guantanamo question, and how do you try a terror suspect on U.S. soil? And so we have those questions to kind of unpack, which were the tweets from last night. And then, of course, we had morning tweets, too, where the president said that, there was an intention to take the suspect through the federal court system in the U.S., but he is tweeting about the death penalty. From a legal perspective, obviously, this is like a defense lawyer's dream when you have the president of the United States effectively putting out what he hopes the conclusion of a trial would be. But, the more interesting part here, I think, from a national security perspective, is something that I think as people who have covered this or people who have paid attention to detention issues have been concerned about for a long time. And that's that, the Obama administration never really clearly established detention policies. The Guantanamo issue was a proverbial thorn in their side, and nothing was ever resolved here. And if the president would eventually, if a situation would come up where he wants to send someone to Guantanamo, he would have the legal ability to do that. It would be hard, and it would be hard for him to make the case that it's worth it. But there is an avenue for him to do so.
Let's talk a little bit about what the president said about the justice system. He said, it was a laughing stock. The national security community has at times been in his crosshairs in terms of his criticism. I know Sarah Huckabee Sanders sort of walked that back and said that, well, the president didn't think that the system is a laughing stock, but other people may have thought that. What'd you make of that back and forth yesterday?
Well, I think we've all been kind of prepared for the president to come at the Justice Department. He's kind of shown a periodic disdain for it, particularly when his administration is in its crosshairs. He is clearly no fan of Robert Mueller in the special counsel's office. He made that very clear on Twitter earlier this week. So that he's kind of gone after the Justice Department and that there is that back and forth from the White House briefing room, I don't think is any surprise, given his penchant for going after people who kind of cross some of his red lines.
Ali, let's talk about the debate regarding Gitmo specifically. It's something we heard the president talk about in the campaign trail, but not a great deal since. Is there an appetite in the Republican Party to hear more about Guantanamo Bay?
It's become such a talking point in a politically charged issue. You see Republicans bring it up periodically, particularly when there's an attack on U.S. soil. Could we send someone back to Guantanamo? But the interesting part about the Guantanamo issue, as someone who has watched it for the last few years, is that when push actually comes to shove, nobody actually wants to send anyone back to Guantanamo. It's a waste of money. It's a waste of time. The military commissions that are still obviously in a pretrial phase to charge the 9/11 perpetrators hit another massive roadblock this week. So the notion of bringing someone to justice at Guantanamo doesn't necessarily hold true. If you want to hold someone indefinitely and never charge them, then you might have a case for sending someone to Guantanamo. But that's going to waste a lot of money and a lot of time.
Indeed. Let's talk a little bit about this Russia investigation. The president actually called some of the reporters from the New York Times to sort of push back on reports that he's seething, he's frustrated. There are all these sort of words to describe his mood in regards to the special counsel's investigation. But he really made it clear in that interview that he himself was not under investigation. He wanted to get that across, that A, he wasn't seething in any way, and he's not under investigation. What are you going to be watching for as this process moves forward?
Outside of the grand irony that, I'm not seething, but I'm giving you a seething phone call. the documents that came out earlier this week are a pretty clear roadmap, both for reporters kind of looking at where Mueller's going to go, and also for the White House. I mean, there was a reason that Mueller put out some of the information that they put out on Monday. And, we were all expecting a Manafort indictment at some point, but the George Papadopoulos document, I think, was intended to send a very clear signal to the White House. And there was another transcript released from some of Papadopoulos' hearings on Monday night. So as far as what we're looking for moving forward, we know this is not the end of Mueller's investigation. He came out hard. He came out with a big indictment for a bigger fish than I think any of us expected. And the White House has pretty much been put on notice.
Politico's Ali Watkins. Ali, thank you as always. We appreciate it.